moment. I'm going to make just a brief comment about Tim. Tim is someone that I just met probably not even a year ago for the first time. We've had head and neck cancer patients here that have spoken who are 5 years, 10 years, even a few 20 years out from their cancer treatment. We're always a little bit cautious about having a patient who is so fresh. Tim just finished his cancer treatment is about 4 or 5 months ago. So this is very fresh in his mind, but he's a uniquely thoughtful person. I've had a lot of fun with Tim, not only mostly post-treatment. When you're going through treatment, it's not that much fun, as he may allude to, but we have become very connected, and we've even shared some good laughs after treatment, so it's a real pleasure and honor to have you say a few words, Tim.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Well, it was last November 14th when I think I probably did a textbook self-diagnosis. I shaved 4 or 5 days, every 4 or 5 days, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. And that morning I just looked at my throat and I could feel a lump right there. And that afternoon I was in the doctor. Later that night I actually flew back to Florida, and I came back Thanksgiving week and started working on it. And by Christmas, I had a feeding tube in, and I had started my treatment. It seems pretty standard, 7 weeks, 5 day a week radiation, and once a week chemo. So that had all started by Christmas. So, your first thoughts, what do you do now? Your first thought, why me? And I actually remembered years ago, there was a lady who talked at our church, and it was probably 30 years ago, and she was about 35 years old, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and they had her come up and speak during the sermon and talk during the service and talk about it. And she said, my first question was, why me? And she said, I was in a Bible study and I asked that question, and one of the people in the Bible study looked at me and said, why not you? Why not you? None of us are immune to things that happen, and that's just the way it was, and I still remembered that, and frankly, the diagnosis didn't bother Beth and I. We focused first on our faith. That was the biggest thing, and I'd like to share a lot of the God stuff that happened, but beyond that, our family was tremendously supportive. My wife was unbelievable. She went to every treatment with me except I think one. Our son was terrific, and the rest of our family just truly supported us, and we were very blessed. Our friends and co-workers, it was a great support group that we had. And but the biggest thing that I found out that prayer is really powerful. There were tons of God moments, but a couple stand out, and one of them was my first treatment. And as the patients, of course, know, you lay down and they roll you back into the tube, and they asked me, the techs asked, what music would you like? And I said, Christian contemporary. And as they're rolling me back into the tube, I hear, Holy Spirit, you are welcome here playing. And I had heard that at our church down in Florida a lot. It's one of my favorite songs. And frankly, I felt so comfortable. I knew he was there, and it just doesn't happen by coincidence. I knew that we were in good hands. The next one came when I put the feeding tube in, and that was before Christmas as well. It was 3 or 4 days, I think, after my first treatment. And as Paul knows, I did not want to put the feeding tube in. I just did not want to do that. I did not want to stay in the hospital. I did not want an appendage sticking out of me. But I agreed to do it, and we went in the hospital maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They did the surgery. You had to stay overnight. I was miserable the whole time before the surgery, and I was miserable as they rolled me up in the hospital room, and I had a pity party, but nobody came. But the next morning, I woke up in the hospital, and I got a text from a friend in Boston, and the friend just encouraged me, and it was a person we knew from Florida, and she was so encouraging that, you got to get over the pity party. And then I read Tony Dungy's devotional every day, and Tony Dungy mentioned a pity party in that day's devotional. And he said the pity party is usually for one. So, you know, we got over it, and you just move on, and, you know, we were fine with it. One thing that I noticed is that surprised me as I went through, I knew the staff was terrific. I knew everybody would be really good. But what I didn't realize is how compassionate they were, how caring they were, how awesome they were. And as I thought about it, you know, I should have known it, because God's the great physician, but he chose those people to take care of every one of us. He chose you guys to help us. He chose Paul to help me. He chose all the docs and staff to work on me. And I just thought how special you guys are, that God chose you to do what you do and to help us all. And it was just tremendous. And I truly want to thank every one of you, because I really do appreciate what you did. Another huge God moment occurred maybe 4 or 5 weeks into my treatment. We got a book sent to us from a friend, and it's called The Carpenter by John Gordon. And it's a modern day story about Jesus in this day and age. But the one line in it that I remembered and really stuck with me is that our biggest battles are followed by our greatest victories. Our biggest battles are followed by our greatest victories. And as I thought about that, I thought, you know what? God has really given us a platform. He's given us an opportunity. It seems everything's a little bit different when you have cancer, and people who know it, it's just a little bit different. Whether it's friends, whether it's family, whether it's support. And God's given us that platform, and he's given us the opportunity, and you can handle it however you want. And I just made up my mind I was going to be positive, I was going to work through it, and with all the support and all the prayers I was getting, there was no way that it wasn't going to be successful. And if it wasn't successful, it wasn't successful. That's what God planned. But we just felt so confident with all the God things that we saw, and that was one of them. And I really truly think, if we all think about it, especially the patients, we do have an opportunity to leave a legacy. A legacy to our kids, a legacy to our grandkids, a legacy to our family, our friends, on how we act and how we handle the news that we got, and how we handle the treatments, how we go through the whole illness. We have a tremendous opportunity, and I encourage all of us to focus on that opportunity and to think about the legacy you want to leave, because it's a great victory to show, and we can win it. The other thing, and I just like to close with, maybe the middle of treatments, a friend asked me, how's it going? He just said, how's it going? And I said, you know, it kind of reminds me of A Tale of Two Cities. And A Tale of Two Cities, I don't remember anything about the book. I read it in high school, and the only thing I remembered was the first line. And the first line in the book is something like, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And it was the worst going through cancer, through the treatments. It was terrible. The radiation certainly wasn't that bad, but chemo and knowing I'd be throwing up for 2 days every week, and it was just a pain, and you know, you just had to get through it. So that was the worst. But for all the support I received, for the friends I made that I didn't know, for the people who helped me and served me at the hospital, it was the best of times. It was just terrific. So there's a lot of good things that have come out of it, and I'm very thankful that we had to go through it. And what'll be, will be. But you know what? It's going to be great, and we're in God's hands, and I'm going to be fine. So I just like to say, really, that I'm going to pray for all you guys, and I truly appreciate everything that everybody's done for us, and thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you very much, Tim. That was terrific, beautifully spoken, so well done. I'm going to share just a brief joke, and Tim probably knows the joke I'm going to tell. It's only in the last year and a half or two that I've become much more interested in golf than I ever was in my life. And I knew that Tim liked to play golf, and he was, after he finished treatment, he really wanted to get back to Florida because he was treated in the middle of the winter, and there's some good reasons to get out of here during that time. And Tim kept asking about, I need to go back, I want to go back when I can, when I'm healthy enough to go back. You know, I feel good when I'm outdoors, I get a chance to play golf. And so I was thinking about that, and I ended up, he told me about a few of his golf buddies, and I actually wrote a letter that was to Tim that I wanted him to hand to his favorite golf buddies, saying, I write this letter on behalf of a cancer patient, Tim Mulcairick, who has just completed 7 weeks of radiation and chemotherapy for an advanced throat cancer. And I hereby request that any of his golf associates recognize that instantaneously his handicap now goes up by 10 points. And I wanted him to give that letter to whoever he needed to make sure that things were going well for him when he did go back on the golf course, because it's going to take a little time to get his strength back. Little did I know that it was probably 3 months later, 4 months later, I get a formal letter in the mail, Dr. Paul Harari, Chairman, Human Oncology, et cetera, and my secretary always opens my mail and kind of checks it, and she didn't say anything about this one. And I'm reading this letter, and at first I thought, for just a moment, it was an angry patient, or angry someone who said, Dr. Harari, I know that you're a famous doctor, or whatever, you know, the preamble, but it is not fair and it is inappropriate that you gave 10 strokes in handicap to Tim Mulcairick, and I'm really upset about it. And for just a moment I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe someone is upset about this. But then he really got into it, and he said, that son of a gun, we're not giving him any handicap strokes. And so I know exactly the kind of group of guys that you're out there golfing with. So congratulations being on this side of the treatment, but you still come in for follow-up. You're seeing me tomorrow, and you'll be with ENT a few months later. We'll be watching you carefully over the coming years. But congratulations, Tim, and to your wife, Beth, for being on this side of cancer treatment.